our world is incredibly pessimistic. And I've discovered that in general, we all become naturally pessimistic. Yep. And Wesleyans are people that have this crazy idea that people change, that God can actually change people. We believe that you're not just stuck the way you were born, that there is a process, we call it sanctification, of God, it's not us, it's Him, doing the work of sanctifying us, of changing us. That is incredibly optimistic. Yep. That I'm not just stuck in yesterday, I'm not just stuck in my problems. Amen. That God can make me something that I was not before. To say that your identity is wrapped up in who you are right now, it neglects the fact that actually your true identity is somebody you are not yet. And so it's incredibly optimistic to cast the vision of becoming that person.
We're delighted today to be able to talk about the Kingdom of Jesus, Oklahoma Wesleyan University, and our guest today is Pastor Mike Wilson. And Mike, you're not a stranger to this place, so tell us a little bit about your journey when you came to college here and what you're doing now.
Yeah, I was an undergraduate student from 2003 to 2006. I kind of came in the time when the school was going through a transition of how, what chapels looked like. And so I was part of the first group to move it from choir-led chapels to student-led band worship, and came through that season, and the school was going through a lot of transition in that season, but incredibly good time of ministry and learning. And then I left here to go plant a church in Kansas City for a few years, and learned a lot in that experience, discovered I needed some more education in this, so I came back here for a master's in business. Okay. And so I did my master's degree while I was the men's resident director on campus for a few years, and then moved up to Gillette, Wyoming, where I'm lead pastor now.
That's great.
Yep.
So lots of different elements going on here. Are you a Chiefs fan?
Heck yeah.
Chiefs
fan. Who's
fan.
not?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good luck. So anyway, we're just happy to be able to talk to you and have a conversation today. So this journey from being a student into being a part of a church in Kansas City and then now in Wyoming. Talk to us a little bit about what that is for a person and what kinds of things went through your mind. The excitement that you had maybe, or maybe even some of those days where you just wondered, like, I don't know if I can do this or not.
Yeah.
What kinds of things were in that journey that are specifics of what led you to Kansas City, what led you to Gillette? And let's just talk about that a little bit in your transition out of school.
Yeah, the Wesleyan denomination has for a while now put an emphasis on the importance of church planting. Yeah. And so when I heard the vision being cast for that, that's why we moved to Kansas City and did the church planting, discovered that's an incredibly challenging thing to do, and felt like we were too young to jump in and do that when we did. But when you're going into ministry, the terrifying thing is preaching. I don't know what to preach about, and I got to make sure my theology is right, and the classes and all that go toward, a lot of that focuses on how do I just make sure I say the right things from the stage. And then when you actually get into ministry, you realize, oh man, that's such a small part about what pastoring is. And yeah, that's important. It's a valuable part. But I realized how much of the student experience, and as a men's resident director and as the RA, I reflected on those experiences, the on-campus experiences, relational experiences that I use so often in pastoral ministry. I never realized I would.
Yeah, it's great. I sometimes think about it in words of, you need that depth and the theology to lean on in any conversation, but you also have to be good in the lobby, right? Yeah. And people are going through life and they're making comments to you as a pastor that have nothing to do with what you preached about, right? Yeah. And the next thing that's on their schedule or something that's heavy that they're dealing with. And so the care that you have to give as well as the content that you have to give, so crucial.
We've seen such a rise post-COVID in mental health issues that has become a primary focus of ministry, and helping people that are dealing with addiction issues and marriage issues. And so I was not trained as a counselor.
Yeah.
My education is not in counseling, but such a large focus is placed in pastoral ministry on counseling, even if it's in the church lobby,
Yeah.
everything to the office. And so that's been a long journey of discovering, okay, how do I help people in the day-to-day questions that they have and the things that they're struggling with? And so that becomes so important in your ministry.
No, it's crucial. We're going to talk a little bit about the culture that you're in now, but I want you to talk just a little bit about your family before we get into that, because that's your primary culture, right?
Yep.
Your primary unit. So tell us a little bit about your family.
I grew up in a pastor's home, fourth generation pastor. And so I came here promising I would never be a pastor because I saw what that was like. Started as a business major here at OKWU and received a call to ministry the summer after my freshman year here, and switched over to become a pastoral ministry major. Went into the ministry. We have I met my wife Darcy here, and I tried to get her for 3 years. It was not until my senior year that she finally said yes.
She gave in
to dating me. I won. She won for 3 years, but I won her over. So eventually she says yes. We get married. We now have 2 kids. We dealt with infertility for 8 years after leaving here, and eventually we're able to have kids. We have 2 boys. Lincoln is 6. Titus is 3. He actually just called me, my 3-year-old, after I preached in chapel, and I showed a picture of the kids, and he called me. He was like, someday I'm going to go to that school and I'm going to put a picture of my family up on that screen. So he's 3. He has no idea, but he's already making plans.
15 years.
That's
we're
right.
ready. Yeah.
They say never too soon to come for a tour, so we'll be down.
True.
We'll be down.
It's true. Yeah. That's great. All right, so now you're in Gillette, Wyoming.
Yeah.
Pastor of New Life. It's a Wesleyan church there.
Yep.
And you know the rigor, or at least a little bit about what your father went through as a pastor, and some of the joys, some of the challenges. You're in that. Gillette isn't everyday, kind of America.
Yeah.
And yet some people in Gillette would say that's all there is to be in Gillette. We are America. And so what kind of culture do you minister to on a day-to-day basis? And I'm really curious because, there's some people that think that they have to be a pastor to minister in a particular space or place. And we know that's not true.
Right.
And yet there's pastors that we've got to have representing the good news of Jesus. And pretty sure Gillette, like any place else, is a broken place.
Yep.
So talk to us a little bit about the culture, the immediate kind of surroundings, not names, obviously, but just things that you deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so the temptation as a pastor is to go to a conference and try to bring everything that you learned about leadership and just copy and paste. But the reality is all good ministry is contextualized ministry. And I can't just copy and paste, because you get to know individuals and you realize that everybody's going through something different. We live in Gillette, Wyoming, which is blue-collar, coal mining town. About half of the U.S. coal comes from our county.
Wow.
And so pretty much everybody is connected to the energy sector, blue-collar workers. And so with that comes with a different kind of struggle than white-collar workers go through. And so you end up with a lot of people who make more money than their white-collar counterparts around the world, but they have not received education on how to use that money, so they end up in tremendous amount of debts. And you see trailer parks with $100,000 trucks out in front of the trailers, and it's just a different thing that I had never experienced in everyday life. And so with that comes different problems and different struggles. And so when you go into everywhere, everything is a mission field. Everywhere you go is a mission field. You got to discover the culture of the place that you're going and learn how to be a part of it before you can truly minister to the people. And so it takes years of that first.
Yeah, so if you take a look at where you were here as a student, go to Kansas City, go to Gillette, Wyoming, what are some of those things that stick out to you that this is just different? This is something that I had to shift a little bit in my thinking, or how to talk to people, how to reach them.
Yeah.
Is there anything that stands out in that?
For people that work in the blue-collar world, they don't see their profession as a purpose. And so a lot of what they're looking for in life is meaning. And so we talk a lot about we tell people you were created on purpose for a purpose. And so we spend so much time trying to communicate to people that they're not an accident of some random big bang, that God made a plan for their life. And so much of our ministry is helping people to discover what that plan is and then how to become the people that God created them to be. And so it's first an invitation, come as you are. We know that you've got stuff to hide. We know that you have problems in your life. Come as you are, but don't stay that way. We want to give you some tools that you can use then to become the person that God created you to be.
That's really good. I was thinking recently about some of the doctrine in Wesleyan theology centered around one phrase called optimistic grace.
Heck yeah.
And so, no one's beyond the grip of God. And even somebody that may be playing a game in their theology or their life, they're putting on the face. I can't say putting on the mask anymore after COVID. But anyway,
new imagery.
They get this game that they're playing where they present themselves as somebody that's holy and godly and yet tormented inside. So how does something like that, Wesleyan theology, just good old optimistic grace, can you think of something maybe even recently without giving too many clues, just maybe where optimistic grace came into a conversation and just genuine Wesleyan theology spilled out in your context?
Our world is incredibly pessimistic.
Yep.
I mean, everything that you hear communicated is something negative, usually about the other side.
Yep.
Whatever aisle you're talking about, it's on the other side of the aisle is the worst that there is. And I've discovered that in general, we all become naturally pessimistic.
Yep.
And Wesleyans are people that have this crazy idea that people change, that God can actually change people. We believe that you're not just stuck the way you were born, that there is a process, we call it sanctification, of God. It's not us, it's Him doing the work of sanctifying us, of changing us. That is incredibly optimistic.
Yep.
That I'm not just stuck in yesterday. I'm not just stuck in my problems.
Amen.
That God can make me something that I was not before.
Yeah.
And I think if people can grab hold of this idea of culture tells people, you are your desires, and so pursue your desires. You are your personality. So we accept people as they are. And it's true, we invite people to come as they are. But to say that your identity is wrapped up in who you are right now, it neglects the fact that actually your true identity is somebody you are not yet. And so it's incredibly optimistic to cast the vision of becoming that person.
I love that. I've often said I want to have not yet eyes.
Yeah.
For myself, for somebody else, instead of never.
Yeah.
Like they'll never be changed. There's never any hope. Maybe even the person in the mirror talking to yourself a little bit that it's not yet, that God still has something He wants to do and complete. So
not yet eyes, that's good.
Yeah. So you could preach that
I'll take
if you're
it.
wondering
I'm gonna
what
steal
to preach.
that.
That's right. Do it. Solomon would say there's nothing new. So do it.
Yep.
Do it.
Yep.
So you touched on something that I think is really helpful to talk about today, and that is, we have to know our culture, our context. We have to know what's going on. And you're right. There's so much division. I mean, it's just, everybody's against everything and everybody right now.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes I'll talk about like, well, what are you for? Surely there's something inside of you that's for something, right? Other than just yourself. Yeah. But anyway, so we have to adapt a little bit to culture.
Yeah.
But then sometimes we can slip over into actually not confronting culture or maybe even just affirming culture. And silence right now is another thing. We're afraid to say some stuff that, it's a powder keg issue. We can't talk about that because somebody will misinterpret me.
Yeah.
You're on streaming, you're pastoring, you're preaching, it's a live show. Forgive me for calling it a show, but there's nobody that's going back to edit your streams usually, right?
Raw.
You might pull one down once in a while.
Right. Been there.
I didn't say that right,
Yep.
But anyway, such a divisive culture. Everybody's wanting to be tolerant and just allow, everything goes kind of thing.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that as a pastor? What kinds of things do you do to present a counter message to culture, and it may be sitting there right there in your church, and you know it.
Yeah.
And some people might shy away from that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you don't.
Yeah.
So what would you do in that case? What advice would you give to a young person who's trying to stand for biblical truth and yet wants to do it, seasoned in love?
Yeah. I'm naturally a very strong-willed, opinionated person. But as soon as I got into the pastorate, I realized the incredible temptation to water down the message, because it seemed like no matter what I said, I was getting attacked. So I just got to keep watering it down. Eventually, as you've been in it for a while, you realize that doesn't help. They're still going to find something. They're still going to attack something. And so for me, the attacks have not so much come from the outside, but from the inside. This infighting that happens in the church, and you add on top of what color is the carpet, or are we pews or chairs or contemporary or it's old school music, whatever it is. That was the normal infighting. Now it's masks and vaccines and political parties and all this other stuff. You pile all that in there, and you eventually come to the conclusion, I'm not going to make people happy, but that's okay, because that was never my responsibility anyway. Being a Christian is countercultural. You are not called to stay who you are. You are called to something different. And so if we're going to invite people to something different, then we have to preach a countercultural message. And I think the church that just keeps blending in with culture more and more just disappears. And you were talking about what are you for? What are you willing to fight for? And I think one of the problems that we've had in the church for a long time is we focus so much on the negatives that happen within the church. And since I was a high schooler, I've heard about the decline of Christianity in America and how, and what you end up doing is you begin believing that we are losing. You forget the fact that we're following God, who can't lose, and you start to believe that you're not losing. Well, who has the energy to fight for a team that is a losing team? Eventually you just say, if we're losing anyway, if we can't do this, if I've been doing this my whole life, why keep fighting? I think it's time for us to get passionate about fighting on the church's team. We are God's people. We cannot lose. The enemy cannot defeat us. So why do we fight like we are on the losing team?
That's great. It's something where we're for life. God is for life, right? I mean, everybody wants to debate what that is today. What kind of life? Well, all of it.
Yeah.
He created life. He wants us to be at one with Him. What kind of marriage between man and a woman? What else? There isn't. We've got to be centered on the things that Scriptures are for, and go on the offense with that, instead of just always being defensive, thinking that we're protecting this kingdom, that Jesus wants us to go out and share this good news, that Jesus saves and that He helps people to be transformed, and that their lives actually can be directed toward Him in what we call holiness and becoming more like Him every day.
And how desperate is the world for the church's message of family? I feel like the more and more we water down the Christian message and allow culture to influence us, what usually takes the brunt of the pain is the family. And the families break down when we allow the world's values to continue to convince us that marriage is unimportant, that life is an accident. And I think the more we defend the Christian family and what is valuable to our children, the better. I think meeting a spouse is too secondary in young people's minds. And primarily, I'd say in looking for a school. If we are called to be equally yoked, then why don't you surround people who would be equally yoked partners? Why do we see it as, we make jokes about how everybody on college campuses is looking for a spouse. Good. That needs to happen. That should be such a primary mission of a Christian campus, to help students meet an equally yoked partner who has the same values, who serves the same God, so that we can build families that the next generation is going to send their kids to. And that's how we grow the Christian faith. That's how we organically grow the Christian faith.
Yeah, that's great. So speaking of family, speaking of children, they might be 15 years off or less. What do you hope for an experience like you had at Oklahoma Wesleyan? Obviously, there may be the introduction to a future spouse, even though it took you forever. I don't know what happened to that, but just some things that you hope are still available in close to a couple of decades from now through a school like Oklahoma Wesleyan. What do you hope for your kids?
When I came to Oklahoma Wesleyan as a business major, I came in contact with an individual. His name is Darwin, and I watched the way he lived his life. The guy loved Scripture. He'd carry a Bible around with him. Like that was weird to me to see this person living so passionately and for his Christian faith. And I watched him, and I said, I want to be like that. It didn't start with I want to be a pastor. It started with whatever he's got, I want it. And I just think it's so important for us to. And I'm not talking about keeping ourselves in a Christian bubble, but making sure we are surrounding ourselves by people who have the values that we want, so that maybe our children see an example that they want to follow. Maybe they get an idea of what it looks like to live like Christ and live passionately for Christ. And so that was how I received my call to the ministry. It wasn't somebody up preaching and saying, you need to be a pastor. I received my call to a ministry watching somebody doing ministry without being a pastor.
Yeah.
And my freshman year, we traveled. We did the camp thing, and we traveled camp to camp. And he was the drummer in the band, and I was the singer. And I would watch the way he lived his life. I was like, I want that. I don't know what it would take, and that began a journey. I want to be like that.
That's great.
And so, yeah, if I'm going to encourage my kids to go to a Christian campus, it's for many reasons, but the primary reason is because I want them to be surrounded by people who are passionate about God. Good.
Well, we hope to be that, and I hope the university is that, even well beyond my time here as well. And I know the value of it personally, having been a student here, and now trying to help the next generation find Christ and do the right things and help the church and all of that stuff. So when you think about somebody who's considering the call of God, yours came a little bit indirect, right? It wasn't a response to a message. It wasn't at youth camp. Wasn't after chapel necessarily, but you saw somebody and you wanted that.
Yeah.
Somebody that's thinking about the call of God, or a lot of students that we talked to today, they're maybe a little bit afraid. Maybe they're buying into the trap, you're not going to make any money, and all those kinds of comments come. I haven't found that to be true. I haven't, become somebody that's on Forbes 500 list, but
not yet.
Not yet. Optimistic grace, right? So it's something that we just need to encourage, some young people to be courageous, to give their lives to Christ, to chase after Him. What would you say to somebody today that's wondering about, I think God may be calling me, but I don't know?
Yeah, I'd say start now. If you think you might be called to ministry, then start doing ministry now. That doesn't mean you're getting up on the stage and preaching now, but start doing ministry where you are, and that will help you to discover your calling and what it looks like and fleshing it out. I think a lot of people come to school and they think, well, I'm going to get there and then I'm going to learn and then I'm going to be a minister. Or I'm going to get there and I'm going to get my theology correct and then I'm going to minister. I think there's so much more to ministry than just learning the right things and having the sermon put together. In everyday life, just start doing ministry where you are, and that will allow you to begin the journey of becoming the minister that God created you to be.
Good.
I think sometimes people are intimidated by the word calling. Yeah. So like you're going to hear an audible voice from God, or you're going to have some emotional experience, and I never had any of that. For me, I know with all my heart now that I am called to be a minister, that I am called into full-time ministry, but I never had some big emotional breakthrough moment and some come to the altar moment. For me, it was a journey of just walking that direction and allowing God to change me in that direction. And so I think a lot of people shy away just waiting too long, waiting on some big epiphany moment. And I think sometimes in life, God invites you to just walk forward. Come and follow me, I'll show you how to fish for people. And they're like, what are the details of that? I have no idea what's on the other end of that invitation, but you're telling me to follow? Okay, I can take that step. I can move in that direction and then allow God to do the sanctifying, allow God to do the work of changing you.
Yeah, it's good. We're never going to know all the outcomes, especially if we don't take the first step. And so I talk to people a lot about what's around the corner. I don't know until I get to that intersection, and I can pray, ask God to lead me in that moment and show me the direction I'm supposed to go.
Yeah, in hindsight, I began my time here at OKWU as a business major because I assumed I needed to hear a calling before in hindsight, I'm like, if I should have just started the journey and allowed God to show me what the end point was. But I wanted to know the end point before I started the journey.
Yep, totally normal. We want to have it all figured out.
Yep.
I mean, you're 18.
Yep.
I mean, you got it all figured out.
Having all the answers.
That's right.
Yeah.
I still love it, and I'm way past 18. But anyway, and I don't know any answers. So a little bit about that optimistic grace in your life, in your ministry. Maybe you had some doubts. Maybe you had some, I'm going to hang up the towel kind of moments. Something came in and encouraged you to keep going, to keep believing.
I believe in God's ability to change people, so much so that I believe that the Christian faith will continue to grow, as it has relentlessly. And as the Christian faith grows, Satan runs out of place. The Holy Spirit goes with us. Satan's got nowhere to go. The light is extinguishing the darkness all around the world, and our faith continues to grow. And you can get pessimistic about it and say, well, that's going to stop and we're going to eventually stop losing. Or you can believe that's going to continue, and God is going to continue to evangelize and to Christianize our world. I believe optimistically about that, but it even goes deeper that as Christians, we believe even if persecution rises and Christianity declines and all, even if that, we still win in the end, and it's not just because we get to escape this terrible place and go to heaven. It's because we can bring heaven to earth in the way that we live our lives, in the way that we build community, in the way that we fellowship for each other. Good. And our lives in this world can be heaven on earth, a glimpse of heaven on earth. And it's good news.
Yeah.
I think we always say it's good news and then we go on to turn it into bad news by, I gotta remove enough sin in my life so that I can be a part of that good news movement. Or I've got to, if it's news, that means something changed. And the change that Jesus came to bring, the good news, was that it's not up to you, that he has accomplished everything necessary for you to be a child of God. Now what he invites you to do is follow him.
Amen.
And so that follow, I think for many of us, looks like, okay, I'm going to choose to pick a Christian school rather than a secular school because I'm following him in that direction. Or I'm going to choose to go to church even though my friends aren't. I'm going to choose to be a part of this group instead of this group because I believe that's where God is leading me. So it's constantly asking ourselves the question, where is God leading me? Because he's the one who holds all the answers.
It's great. It's little stuff, right? I mean, it's little decisions, little steps. It's not some grandiose, great big one-step leap.
Bingo.
Right?
Yep.
So listen, we're proud of you and grateful for God's ministry in you and through you, grateful for your family, your heritage here, your ministry here to our students while you're on campus this week. And I know that we've been in some pretty serious things, but I just want to take a moment while we have you. I tell our students today I deserve every prank that's pulled on me because of the pranks.
Oh man, that's brave.
Yeah, I pulled on Dr. Mills when he was president here. So Dr. Mills, forgive me. I didn't do all of them, but some of them. So there's one prank that you pulled while you're here. Doesn't have to be about the president, but something that you did while you're here. My father used to say you have to be a little bit bad to be really good.
There you go.
Right? So you have to have some passion.
That's how I became so good.
Absolutely.
That's what it is, yeah.
So anything come to mind?
I can't even decide which prank I would talk about. But one that comes to mind is we always hated the toilet paper that was in the dorms. They used to have this thin toilet paper.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever tried to use thin toilet paper. It's a nightmare.
I wish I could tell you that it's different today, but go ahead.
Okay, so we used to hate the thin toilet paper, and we would campaign, can we have thicker toilet paper? Well, we never got thicker toilet paper, so we decided to steal a bunch of the toilet paper, and we toilet papered the president's office and covered everything, wrapped the bookcases, wrapped the tables on the chair and his desk, and covered the entire thing in toilet paper, and we sneak out, and we assume nobody has any idea that we did it, until I'm graduating, and I'm walking across the stage, and the president takes my diploma and he puts it back on the table and he reaches over and he grabs a roll of toilet paper and he hands it to me instead of my diploma.
Yes.
So I realized in that moment, I'm caught. He knew that we did it, but I thought we got away with it.
That's right. It's still paper. It's not going to get you a job, but it's still paper.
Yeah. So. Eventually I got my diploma.
That's good. But, yeah. That's good. All right. So we're going to do a lightning round. Okay. So I just need your first answer that comes to your head. Okay. All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Skydiving or scuba diving?
Both. Skydiving.
Wow. What would your dream job be second to being a pastor?
Escape room owner.
That leads me to another round of questions. How many escape rooms have you done?
Getting close to 300.
What's your fastest escape time?
23 minutes.
What's your longest escape time?
1 hour and 3 seconds.
You didn't make it.
We didn't make it.
You didn't escape.
We failed one time.
Escape room owner. It's kind of like being a pastor once you think about it, right? Trying to escape and get into heaven. Hey, we appreciate you talking with us today. And this is part of who we are. This is what it means to be one sent, to be a student here, to be changed by Christ here, be called, step into that calling, and go into what is now great ministry in Gillette, Wyoming. We're grateful for you, and pray God's blessing.
Thank you for everything you guys do here. Keep inspiring the next generation to give themselves to God. Our church needs young leaders, young ministers, and this is where it starts. So that's so important.